What's going on, everybody out there? I see some people in the chat ready to hear some pure alpha. I'm joined today on this wonderful Sunday afternoon, a little bit earlier than our usual starting time, with the one and only Crypto Sloth and Crispy Man of HEXFire.io. We've been working on some
What's
GigaBrain
up?
chart analysis, chart data for you guys. It's pretty high level stuff, but nah, it's exciting, and I'm happy to share that with you guys every other Sunday. So glad to be here. How are you guys doing?
Dude, I'm doing great, man.
Fantastic, man. How you doing?
Oh,
I feel the
man.
I feel the brain
It's about
cells.
hard.
I feel the brain cells
Pulsing.
growing.
The synapses are firing. You can feel it.
Yep. Building
It's the
new.
intro music, man. It just gets me warmed up, you know.
I like it. I like mine is like a nice chill one going in, and yours is like hypes you up, gets you in, and then we start. I like it.
If you guys didn't catch I did a stream with Silver the Antidote. Shout out to anybody that came over from Silver the Antidote stream. Appreciate him for everything he does for DeFi and for the future of everyone. It's good work. And if you didn't catch that stream with Silver, we were also with Waters Above the other day. We went really deep on physics, philosophy, different ways we see in the world and the universe, and how we understand the markets and consciousness itself. So if you didn't get a chance to see that, go back and watch that replay on Silver's channel. Another thing, shout out to Markable Thoughts, aka the Beard, Proof of Beards Only. He put together my intro. He also, I think he, along with his brother, put together Crypto Sloth's intro. And so if you're in the market for video content, please go check out or hit up Proof of Beards Only 1 on Twitter.
We'll go hit up Steak and Chill on YouTube. Hex Lo-Fi, that's his brother. That's his channel. I'll drop it in the chat.
I also saw a quick little snippet this morning of Markable actually clipped out something from the Power of 369 stream that we had done a few weeks past, and there was really profound stuff that came out of that stream as well from a philosophical vantage point. And then inside of that stream, we actually discovered how many times the hex price has played with the 6 level. Forget about how many zeros in front of the price or behind price. It's always playing with a 6 level, either a support or resistance. So if you didn't get to check that one out, please go back and look on my channel at Deep Thoughts on Cosmic Consciousness. That was another really good one, and he actually took out some of those snippets from that and made it into like a little lo-fi track. So that stuff should be hitting your ears shortly through Twitter, YouTube, and other means. So make sure to keep your ears peeled for that as well.
Yeah, Access, remember that image I sent you in like one of our chats, or for the third monthly candle, just the line that I happened to do was also at a 6 level for the close that it needed to be above was the 6.66 cents.
I mean, funny. I guess I can act surprised. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
So everybody in the chat, let's see, who do we got here today? Man, chat's freaking hopping. Dude, my finger's about to fall off scrolling all the way up to the top. Oh my god. Dude, I'd be here all day doing that. I can't do it anymore.
That's what I was looking at.
Dude, drop some questions. What do you guys want to see? I mean, we got plenty to talk about, I guess, but I just whatever you guys want to see. We're here for you. We're here to please.
You ready for a 6-hour stream?
Yeah.
I think we got to be somewhere in like at 2:30, but yeah.
All right.
You guys already did that. Like the last stream like you two did together. I hopped in for a little bit, and it was like an hour or two later after like already being in 2 hours. Like, oh shit, they're still going. You guys just kept going. All those charts.
I don't know why, but it's just like that's what HEXFire.io does to me. I just get lost in the charts for hours and hours.
I think it's Hex just in general, man. Well, there's just so many ways to go. I mean, you go so deep into this stuff.
It's a black hole for economic energy and for mental resources.
I've had more than one person contact me and say, "Hey, listen, I just can't look at your stuff anymore. I just can't because it's just consuming too much of my time." That's good.
Oh yeah, bullish engulfing on the hex chart. We're at 8.28 cents right now, so that's feeling pretty good.
Let's go.
You know, I was taking a look at the charts this morning. You know, Silver and I always communicate, and the best part about working with Silver is that we don't always agree on where we think the market's going. And that's actually really powerful because you want to have that when you're doing analysis. Is you want to be able to like segregate yourself away and have only your mind untouched and your understanding of the markets. And then there's another element or layer of it as you mature as an analyst where you want to be able to actually speak regularly with somebody who has conflicting views as you, so that you can come to some sort of middle ground on where you think the market is headed. Because effectively that's what the market is. It's people competing for cheaper or higher prices, right?
Well, yeah, you know, yes, diversity in this case is very good, right? Because each one of the opinions has its own like percentage chance of occurring, right? Maybe it's a high percentage, but if you don't ask why not, then you're going to miss some opportunities, right? So if I tell you the opposite of what you're thinking, taking that pause and asking some more questions might give you a better read on the situation, right?
And even from just what's the word I'm looking for? Semantics, not lingual. From like a dialogue perspective, like, you know, conversations, like no conversation happens if you just agree with each other. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I agree. And then like that's it. But like when you disagree, that's when like you actually learn something and like a conversation actually happens.
Oh yeah, dude, I got into HEX. Oh, you got into
Oh,
HEX.
shit.
You got into HEX, dude. I got into HEX, dude.
You staked it, dude? No way. I
Dude,
burned
you
mine.
staked it for 5 days. I staked it for 10, bro.
Wow, Slop, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
End of conversation.
Wow.
Wow.
My.
Yeah,
HEX,
crazy.
bro. HEX, bro.
Let's go.
Hear me out, man. Hear me out. HEDRON.
I'm listening. I'm all the way. I'm all the way. Like some of your best deals are going to be in the Icosa HEDRON package right now. You know, just due to how big the discount is and the margin between what you can buy HSIs for on the auctions versus what you can get by buying HEX off market and staking it. You know, I think that this next year to 2 years, you know, as this bull market really ramps up, it's really going to provide a lot of opportunity in places that are not so easily looked at, right? So, I mean, we talk about this stuff, but does anybody actually use the data, or does anybody actually listen and act on it? I don't know. Sometimes I think so because the chart goes up.
I think they do act on it, but I couldn't agree with you more. There's huge opportunities right now in HSI auctions. Huge.
I don't even
You
need
want to
to.
elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to elaborate on it? Let Slop do it.
All right.
Well, I was going to just make a quick point to the people using the data for action. Actually, it could also be useful for inaction too, insofar as it gives them confidence to not sell or confidence to keep going, you know, with whatever bag that they had. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Crispy.
Oh no, man. Yeah, I think it's all good. And we were chatting a little bit about this before, but long-term thinking. So I always break things down at least into 3 different groupings: short, medium, and long. Right, when I'm thinking about my strategies. And long-term is, I think crypto will be around for 15 years. I think this ecosystem will be around 15 years. I think that I want to have a big place in the ecosystem in 15 years. It's a long way out. But the people who are going to rule in 15 years are the one taking position now, because you can't go back in time, right? So 5, 6 years from now, supposed I'm correct, and we do really great with everything, and things are going up the way we expect them to go up. You can't go back in time and take position, but you can take position right now. So I think there's a place for a strategy to really plan out what your Quattro Cinco looks like today. You know, those years between when, you know, HEX launched and we were 15 years out from that was 34, all the way up to 38 right now. And if you have a flavor for it, you have a taste for it, getting yourself set up today for those years. Of course, not financial advice, but man, at 50% the cost for the HEX, at old T-shirt rates, the auctions being underutilized, it's almost like a no-brainer.
Yeah, the only thing that probably will look back and be like, man, I should have got into that is the what's. That's probably the only thing is like, man, I should have participated in the auctions. And then the thing that other one is like getting into the getting those NFTs early. But I think you're right, man. I think 15-year T-shares are a great hedge in your HEX portfolio if you're looking to take profits on the next major top for the bull run, because there's always that chance that you're wrong and it goes higher. Like, we all have pretty, like, let's do it like Crispy. We're talking in the background. You're like, conservative price target, 80 cents. Like you're happy with that. That's a great price target.
Oh, man. Now I'm a futter.
Yeah, right.
What are you doing?
And then Axis, you're saying like, $4 is also like in the cards, very, very realistically too, not even like that crazy of a price target.
Yeah.
But even still, like, crypto outperforms our wildest expectations and dumps greater than our wildest expectations. So like, using that as a metric, using 80 cents as a low target, 4 cents as a medium, you can start getting up $10, $20 up from there. And then, like, who knows what's happened. And then if you sold thinking it's like $4 or something like that, those 15-year HSIs are essentially your hedge against getting out of the market too early, which is like a risk we all take whenever we're looking to take profits. Like if you're don't have exposure, you're limited to the upside, even though there are ways to like realistically take profits in a responsible way that where realistically you'll be able to re-enter. But that's how I see those stakes as a hedge, just in case we're wrong to the upside.
Well, I think you always need to be able to have that exposure to the upside and having that flexibility, because we see what happens when you get locked in and the price does something you didn't expect. But to explain the 80-cent thing, I think this, maybe I didn't say it out loud. Looking at the last ETH run from the bottom to the top, if I was to use that as my model, it was something like a 53x. And if I applied that to the 1.7 cents, that's what gets me to the 80 cents when I talk about that. I don't like that number, by the way. I want it to be much higher. But, it's in the realm of possibilities, right?
Yeah, what I know in terms of what's sitting on the sidelines in long-term believer wallets, that based on their past actions and behaviors in the system, there's enough ammo out there to get us to 80 cents and beyond. And then when you start factoring in adoption of new wallets like this ETH Genesis whale that's buying like right now as we're sitting here talking, it's not unreasonable to think that those prices are definitely on the table.
Yeah, and I concur with that. Yeah.
The thing that I always go back to.
You weren't kidding. That guy is buying it up, huh? Jeez, hey, if you want to see a price increase or price bump, just go on stream with Axis.
Right. Well, we got big whales watching our back out there. So shout out to the guys that are out there helping these guys get exposure safe and secure, right? So, certain names come to mind. I don't want to dox, but yeah, there's a coordinated effort here to protect this thing long term. And based on what I'm seeing, I don't know, I guess we could go into a little bit of analysis here. Pull up some charts. Just really like to do that sometimes. I did want to briefly touch on, we'll pull up the chart so we can watch something. This is the USDC chart in HEX. You can see that there's not a lot of wicks on this chart, just a couple. But then when you pull up the ETH chart, look at all the wicks, man. This is the volatility you're getting on the HEX ETH pair, right? It's telling a different story. It's like there's accumulation in Ethereum terms that you're just not seeing on the USDC chart, right? This is what I was saying about ETH Genesis whales, or just ETH participants and at all looking for more than just a 10x this cycle, right? They're going to protect their ecosystem, their chain, and in this case, they're going to protect HEX because it's the most valuable ERC20 out there.
Yep, objectively.
Yeah, I mean, and I can prove it. Like if I go to Etherscan and just pull up the top ERC20 tokens, right? Here you can see HEX, Tether, USDC coin, they're stable coins, and then BNB, there's no volume. BNB, you can't trade. Yeah. No, you can't trade it because if you try to trade, like if I go to ETHEX.com.
Oh, there's no wrap BNB liquidity.
There's nothing there. You can't trade it. Yeah, so if I type in wrap BNB, bam. If I just wanted to put in 10 ETH, what happens? You can get 5.3 wrapped BNB at a $300 per for 17 grand. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? So silly. Like, this is the number one most valuable thing on Ethereum, man. It's HEX.
And it produces you yield while also being valuable.
Yeah, this is a great point to bring up. Money Gang Crypto's question. He said, Crypto Sloth axisALiVE thoughts on a certain young influencer was saying that fair value is useless in coin fatigue. probably meaning coin fatigue is prominent and not the ceiling prices, and probably in terms of Hedron and Icosa, and the dilution of HEX, dilution of anything within the HEX ecosystem. And so in terms of just HEX itself, obviously this doesn't apply because there's a yield element to it. And as a function of that yield element with the T-share, Hedron and Icosa are uniquely positioned to not fall to coin fatigue because they're so tied in with the system, with the amount of HEX that's locked up in the system, right? And that's being arbitraged with and against in terms of buying Hedron off market to then turn around and buy HSIs with, that then gets burned, which props up the prices of all three, right? And then that burned Hedron then turns into Icosa yield, you know, and it then also can be used to then again buy more HEX that's staked up inside of HSI. So it's a positive supply loop, right? Where you just, the price can go up long term after all the bear market activity has ceased. So definitely, definitely a good question.
And I've seen a lot of those clips. You know, there are HEX, I don't know, content creators who are, they're not like critical of Hedron and Icosa, but they get, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. They're critical of it when you try to compare it with, like, are they going to outperform HEX? And then they see it as like, it's an absolutely silly notion to think these things are going to outperform HEX in any way, shape, or form. And so these coins aren't really interesting. And I've given that some thought, and I think the framing is wrong. When I listen to some of these conversations that they have or some of these clips that they have, and I think the better framing, and even I would go so far as the proper framing is T-share exposure, right? So like Hedron is, I've said this plenty of times, is as closest to a B share as you can get without actually being a B share, because its distribution model is based on the B share and you can exchange it for B shares, right? So there's that direct exposure to having B shares by holding Hedron, and like you can exchange it now, like people are getting amazing deals off of it. And then Icosa's distribution in existence is basically based on the burning of those Hedron tokens. So it's like, it only exists when there are B shares that are burnt, essentially. And so when you think about how you're going to get exposure to the T-share and you look at it through these different avenues that you can go, HEX directly staking it, Hedron holding it liquid, exchanging it for HSI T-shares or staking the Hedron, and Icosa, which is holding Icosa and staking it because there's no direct redeemability for Icosa. And then you frame it within the fact of it takes 180 T-shares for 15 years to get you 1 billion Hedron. Well, you can reverse frame that and say 1 billion Hedron is the same as having 180 T-shares for 15 years. And so it's like, once you start framing it in terms of how much exposure you can get for how much T-share exposure you can get per dollar going into these different assets, making allocations to them becomes a no-brainer, because if they happen to run in the way that they can because they're exposed to the T-share, you will have proper exposure to be able to capitalize on that. Does that make sense? That's kind of a long one.
I think we need to show people the Hedron inflation chart so they can get their mind around this concept. And the reason why is because, you know, as Chris Freeman will tell you, Hedron supply is not going to get inflated away forever. He'll tell you that. If you just ask him, he'll tell you that.
I will. Hedron will not be inflated away forever. Just say.
He's told it to us.
But it corresponds to, and I think this is what Sloth's going to say. It corresponds to HEX staking, right?
Yep. So like some of the numbers you were showing in the background like line up perfectly with this chart in terms of like when most of the T-shares expire, and it's right around this 2030 mark. Whoa, what's going on with my mouse?
You got a glitched mouse, bro.
Yeah, it's looking good on my screen, man. I don't know what to tell you. There we go, right here. But essentially, with this chart, and a shout out to Drew Young, the creator of HSI Watch. He was very generous and has been very generous lately with his time and talents, helping me out, providing with data in the background. But he made this chart really quickly. And what it is basically the total amount of HEDRON that's mintable based on end stake data. So it's like when the stake ends on this date, the number of stakes that come out on this date when they end, how much HEDRON can be minted. And what you see is basically just a gradual decline over time to 2030 right here, where it just falls off a cliff. And then the slope basically is, I think it looks a little steeper than what we're currently seeing now. And then it basically by 2037, it's basically zero. There's basically no mintable HEDRON coming out. But essentially what this chart is showing is that like the power of the 10x bonus mentors in the system is very limited, and it's limited by what, 7 more years basically until it's gone. What's up with this mouse, man?
How do you think the shape of this will change if people decide to mint more earlier? How will it change?
Probably the slope increases to the downside, because if you mint it earlier, then there's less mintable at that end date.
So you could, I guess you could see some volatility then, you know, and
as well as considering emergency end stakes too. If you EES before, then it goes down. What's up with this mouse?
And then the other thing you see is a lot of people to the tune of billions, some you know, millions or billions, just end stake and don't even mint.
Yep. It's been like what, like 1 trillion HEDRON that just like never was minted, that just doesn't exist.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's
HEDRON easy 100x, guys. Well, I don't know if anything over a 50x is easy per se, but I would say that if you know, if HEX is going to do another 500x, 1000x, HEDRON's chances of doing 100x is probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Because eventually the deal gets so good on the HSI auctions, which you're literally just buying HEX off there essentially. If you break away all the abstraction, that if this thing can buy you HEX at a discount, then that thing that's going to buy you HEX at a discount will go up in price and make sure that you can no longer get a discount at some point. And a good way to think about this is the money that's going to come into HEX to get HEX to multiple dollar targets is going to be overflowing in the cups of those who came before, and they're going to need to find a place to put that economic energy. So they're going to go into other things, right? That's part of the bull market cycle.
Let me go ahead and I just reshared it to see if that fixes the mouse thing. But let me look through the HSI auctions with everybody really quickly to kind of look at like what the volume that we're still getting in terms of HSIs being sold for Icosa, despite being like oh man, what are we at? Like 5x from the ceiling price, so 64 cents, and like the current ceiling price is what? Let's just do it really quickly. Now that we got a pump, it's looking a lot higher. Current ceiling price. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, along the way, give me some recommendations on how to pick up 200 T-shares in the auction. That's what I'd like to do.
Go to this tab right here and see if you can find a good deal, sir. That's how.
Yeah, but no, we want the granularity.
Yeah.
Different tools, right? We can use to try to scope this stuff out.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for like where to actually do your bidding and like look for stakes, it's going to be HEDRON.today. So the app.icosa.pro, like that's the official place for the auction house. But HEDRON.today is just a much easier, much better user experience. And actually, let me pull up a wallet. Here, I'll pull my screen down and I'll pull up a wallet so I can show you guys exactly how to do it.
And I'll pull up the chart while he's doing that.
Yeah.
Big wallet here, guys. Big wallet accumulating. I don't know if you guys can read this, but 20 million HEX sitting liquid. I'm pretty sure this guy's staked till May. Another sizable bag. This was a few weeks back at the 5 cent level. So, you know, look at how much he's got in ETH value. Something to think about.
Yep. I like it. Yep, I got it up whenever you want to pull it up. All right, so this is a HEDRON.today, and there are like the two really awesome functions of this one. Is my mouse still? Wow. Is this filtering. So say like you wanted 200 T-shares, right? You just move this up to 200. Let's go, or 100 T-shares. That's the max that it goes. And then now it's basically filtered out all of the HSIs that haven't started their liquidation auction yet. It shows them up here for you to be able to bid on them. So we don't get another 100 plus T-share one for another 10 days to be able to start. Now, if we lower it to say, let's go 50, 6 days, let's lower it to 30. So there's 147 T-share stake that is that you're able to start right now, the auctions. You can do the same thing in the auction house here, where you can adjust the minimum stake length that you want, and it'll show you all of them that are able to be bid right now. So right now, let's see, we've got 20, there's a B shares for 24 T shares here and 19 here, and so there are only what 11 HSIs up for bid right now. But as they start to come out in the liquidation side of things, more of them will start flooding in. But yeah, so that's how you do it. You filter here, find the ones that you want, and then start those auctions. 24 hours later, the thing will end. The auction will end.
I think another thing to think about too is I'm going to pull up. Just keep your screen, but I'm going to pull up the HEX. I'm sorry, the HEDRON and Icosa ecosystem here. You should be looking for deals on HEDRON when it's on discount. And so, for those of you that were following us during the run up and then subsequent dump in HEDRON price off that high, we called when the OA removed its liquidity that would be a time to basically look to, that we were kind of sketched out by that, and we thought that there was downside implied. And if we were talking about that end of January, early February, and that somewhere around here when we broke this key level, that we would be seeing. This was before though. This was OA still had support inside of these bands between the 382 and the 5.5. Sorry, I'll maximize it so you guys can see it better. But anyway, long story short, when you get these big drawdowns on HEDRON, those are your indicators of, like, when you see wicks to this size, this is your indicator that even if you come back down to test, these are good times to buy because things are get really oversold. So what you look for, quickly, without giving you guys away all the free marbles here, is you can see how I have this set up on my chart here. Sell zones and buy zones on the relative strength index. These are key times to make big plays on HEDRON, right? So if you get down below, let's say 30 on the RSI, it's probably a good time to accumulate in anticipation of buying HSIs. If it's up into the red zone, historically that's been a good time to sell. Now, if you would have sold the first time you went up here last time, you would have got wrecked because it actually made a new high and ran up 300% off that low. So it's not 100% accuracy because you ended up getting a lower high on the RSI here later on, like a month later, but you still went up 300% from that low. So it's not 100%, but if you're following these trends, look at here. You got a high on the RSI here in February, and then you had a lower high in March on the price of HEDRON. So just things to think about moving forward in terms of strategizing around your buys in HEDRON. Right now, HEDRON's actually holding the 21 daily as support. It's like continually, it's oscillating around, which is even more bullish in my mind. If it holds it strong to structure and goes, that's good. That's why you got such a strong impulse off that level. But then if it breaks through and holds it as resistance a couple times, but then gets back above and goes again, that's also more signs of strength because it's not dumping, right? And so Sloss actually got a chart that he can pull up, which shows us the velocity of HEDRON being minted that could be used for downside sell pressure, and how that really it's not going to be that impactful, right? In terms of something that can keep this down for much longer.
Yeah, Axis, along with this, HEDRON's just old enough now that we're past the 350, mark, 350-day mark. So I've begun to track that on the golden ratio as well, and it's also coming to a cross on its 111 and 350-day moving average. So it's following along with everything else.
All right, I'll pull that up while Sloth's showing you the velocity.
Yeah, so if you go into my chart section and look into HEDRON.com, and I just pull up charts, click the HEDRON inflation data charts because that's all that I have right now, and then it'll load it up. and you go down here, we got HEDRON inflation velocity. So this is basically the rate of change over a 7-day average of certain days minting has. So it's like I took a moving average of all the minting over the 7-day period, and then I took the minting of every given day, subtracted that from that 7-day average, and then divided it by 7 to get basically like a velocity, a rate of change. And there are all these anomalous areas. So the beginning before 50, that's like when everybody got their 2 years of HEDRON basically up front on day 1 with the 10x bonuses. So there's a bunch of minting there before the moving average took place, which is why it goes negative at the very beginning. But all of that volatility there is from the beginning. And then around the 50 to 100 day, I don't remember exactly what was going on, but I think it might have been the OA minting some HEDRON there to set up the OA wall. And then between day 150 and 200, I believe that was all the minting from the Icosa launch. People getting their HEDRON to stake it, as well as even to like sell the news kind of event. But what you'll see is after that, since the Icosa launch, the volatility has been really dampened and has oscillated around 0. And what that is kind of indicating to me is that the amount of sell pressure that we're seeing isn't really coming from acute or singular hyperinflationary events from minters. So the rate of minting is being relatively consistent over time within, let's see, what's this range that it's in right now? Within a plus minus 40 billion range. So it's like, there's a minting event, and then obviously after that, it goes negative because the days after that aren't being minted as much, and it's kind of oscillating in that 40 billion range, which really isn't like that crazy of a number. Now, the next step to this is to correlate it with the price chart to see kind of what's going on relative to how price moves. But preliminarily, what I'm seeing from this inflation velocity chart is that we're not seeing consistent major mintings from large wallets over time. It's pretty much staying even as time has gone on since the Icosa launch. I don't know, Crispy, you have some insight into some of the background data. Just off the top of your head, what are you seeing with this chart?
Well, a couple observations on my end, right? That just personally, right, I've had less desire as the price of HEX goes up to mint my HEDRON. Because not only it costs a few bucks to do that, I'm just tired, right, of minting. And so then you add into the fact that over time people are feeling more comfortable, I think, overall with the system and with the assets. Perhaps some see a huge upside, for holding on to it rather than dumping it. So I think there's a lot of different crosswinds. But like you had said earlier, we still have quite a bit that people have not minted that are in their wallets. We have people that end stake either by accident or on purpose without minting.
Yep.
And so it all feeds into those numbers you're showing.
Yep. There's something else I was going to say. But the mintable remaining by end stake day, that chart begins on March 30th, and it's showing a little over 1 trillion HEDRON that's able to be minted, which I think is the number that you also got in the background too. So it's like pretty much we have a backstock of 1 trillion HEDRON, and as time is going on and stakes are ending and people are people are either not minting it or they're minting it and ending it, that backlog of HEDRON is just going down over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in some cases, and so I guess what we're not telling people to do is go mint and take a loss, right? I mean, that's not the suggestion, because some people just don't mint because their stakes just don't have enough, or their miners aren't going to pay enough to actually pay for the mint. So it makes sense to not do it.
Yep. And I mean, even like I'm not a huge staker in terms of staker class. Like I have a very modest bag I'm very happy with, but it's modest compared to a lot of other people's. And like their stakes that I ended it was the same as the gas fee. I just did it for the sake of it, because just for the experience of minting my HEDRON for the first time. But for stakes going forward, I probably just won't.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem with anything, right? Well, in crypto, right? I look at the stake and I'm like, oh, it's going to cost me too much, so I'm just not going to mint it. because I can buy it on the market, but then I never buy it on the market.
Right.
So I end up end up with less, right? And miss out totally because I didn't want to spend the money
We got
on
a
the
question
gas.
here from Jennifer Hudson. She's wondering where can we see the amounts needed for whale, shark, dolphin, etc. portions of the HEDRON and Icosa supplies? Does anybody have that data?
I can pull it up right now, my friend. Let's go to, actually, I think it's under Icosa. So Icosa is a little bit different than HEDRON because HEDRON has a total supply that's not affected by staking because the Icosa contract can't burn it and then restake it. So I'll do the Icosa first. And so we'll start with the total supply with stake totals and Icosa supply. So 39160,528 plus 3975404. So there's a total supply of 43 million Icosa that exists, both staked and unstaked. And so if you divide that by 100, that's 1% of the supply. So you would need 431,000 Icosa between your liquid and your stake position to have a whale position. And then from there, it's just dividing by factors of 10. So then dividing by 10 is a dolphin position, a shark position, 43,000. Divide by 10 is a dolphin, 4,313, which is actually, you know, that's not that crazy of a number if you think about it in terms of like how much yield you're getting on your Icosa stakes. And then obviously a squid would be 431. Now notice the stake lengths are different for that. So like a squid goes up to 398, dolphin 3975. It's less than this total amount because that's being calculated from the liquid supply, not the stake supply. And then HEDRON, the total supply is, let's see. It is, where's the total supply of HEDRON? It should be here somewhere. Or I can go on Etherscan, that's fine. It's like 115 trillion, if I remember off the top of my head. Let's see.
While you're finding that, I just want to bring up that we're working on, Crispy Man's actually working on a whole new league system based on your gravitas inside of the system in terms of how much time you have power in it. You know, he didn't even know this before I said it, but we're actually working on an entirely new way of formatting so that you could see, you know, just because you had, let's say, 10,000 T-shares for 2 years, you might not have the same power as somebody who's got, you know, 10,000 T-shares for 15 years, right? Because as those stakes mature, you're never going to be able to catch up to the guy that has 10,000 for 15 years. So that's something that we're working on in the background. I'm probably going to be helping him develop a new league system based on their people's level of wizardry and time, because that is the whole element of this game. It's pretty amazing when you break the data down. And by the way, Crispy, if you want to pull that data up, we can as the stream progresses.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. See, it's the same. It's the same type of approach we've been working with Maddie. In fact, we gave it the Maddie all-in. I didn't call it Maddie, but we called it the all-in.
The all-in, I like it. And yeah, just T-shirt years. Yep, that's a good metric. Just real quick for the other question that we were answering, it's 117 trillion HEDRON total. So that's 1.1 trillion for a whale, 117 billion for a shark, 11.7 billion for a dolphin, and 1.1 billion for a squid. There you go. So yeah, just take it and divide it by 100 and then start dividing by 10, and that's how you can calculate those numbers yourself.
Yeah. And like good time to maybe just mention, you know, that the league system was developed for HEX T-shares and it's unique to that system. So, you know, take that stuff as a grain of salt, because with anything that's not held inside of a time lock, because it doesn't have the same weight as like the leagues do in HEX, because you are like locked into that position. And if you try to abort, you end up like completely shifting the entire system, right? It's not like let's say I'm hypothetically like a turtle in HEDRON because I have this much HEDRON that could be dumped or bought or minted at any given rate at any day. It's like it's harder to track. There's no stability to that system, and so that's why, not to shit on anyone's parade, but it just doesn't have as much relevance, right? Because people can shift and over a course of a bull run, like those leagues are the people inside of each league is going to shift so much more in an asset that isn't locked up.
Yeah, I like the framing of it in terms of what's the minimum amount of capital that I need to reach escape velocity the soonest. And I use the HEX historical price action to dictate that. And so like where we're at now, even now with the being at 7 cents and even before we were at like 1 to 3 cents, the dolphin class of the HEX stakers basically reached escape velocity with the amount of T-shares that they had. In terms of, at the very least, in terms of their asset valuation, whether they are liquid or not is a different story, or how liquid those T-shares are is a different story in terms of the stake length of them. Regardless, the squid class reached a high level of net worth and valuation of their bags, but it wasn't necessarily the escape velocity amount. Now, the higher squids probably reached there for sure, but really it was that dolphin class where they reached it. And so that's why I like to frame a lot of my purchases or a lot of my framing around these staker classes. And it's really just percent of the total supply. The exact aquatic animal is kind of irrelevant. It's just like a fun framing tool. But that's why I like to talk about it a lot personally.
I know on a personal note, right? When I find out that I'm not a dolphin or a shark, I get mad and I want to become one. So
I always took you for an envious type there, Crispy.
Competitive. It worked well in HEX. I mean, I didn't care about leagues until they made them.
Right.
All of a sudden, I was like, no way. This isn't right. I've been here for 2 years already. What do you mean I'm not up there?
This chart I have in front of you guys is the HEX USDC 1% fee pair, and it's a massive channel. And the price traded an equal amount of time up in the upper channel as it did in the lower channel, but now we've been grinding through that middle channel, and right now we've caught support on the middle channel now for the 4th time, essentially, since the DPEG event on the USDC where we had a double bottom. See that double bottom here. And now you've just got this trend that's being built. It's scary because there is a group of actors inside of the system right now that's quite bearish. And for better or for worse, they're trying to suppress price, thinking that, the macro is looking pretty bad. But I caution people because everything that I'm seeing on the longer term time frames on Bitcoin and Ethereum is bullish. And one way I can show you that is in the stochastic RSI. So if I show you the stochastic RSI, I've shown this before, but it's important because anytime this indicator on the bottom comes out of a bear market and flips the orange line with the blue line and heads up into these bands, it always 3 for 3 now, it's ripped to the top of the band. 3 for 3. And so this would be an anomaly if Bitcoin did not continue to get up on the upper band. So back in 2013, price traded above into these over the stochastic RSI held above the 80 level for an extended period of time from October of 2012 all the way until June of 13. And even though the stochastic fell back through, it made a double bubble top, went to $1,000 per Bitcoin. So it bullish. And then in 2015 through 2017, the stochastic held, and you had this gigantic, beautiful parabola that built up over multiple years. And then again, 2019, price got above, stochastic RSI touched like 14.7K, and then it had a retracement for the rest of the year. And currently where we're at is we're midway through that move on Bitcoin. And so any kind of consolidation here in my mind it's bullish. It's not bearish. And if you zoom into like the hourly, daily charts, it's going to be volatile because it's repositioning that's occurring. The one way I like to frame it is, think of all the people that got wrecked for billions of dollars in FTX, Luna, Celsius, that are sitting on the sidelines, like trying to sell everything off, their mansion, their cars, their wife, their dog, their kids, to try to reposition and get their Bitcoin back before Bitcoin continues to leave them with maximum pain to the upside, right? And you can see that in the chart here. So I know I'm very, very cautious to say, your worst case bet on this whole entire thing is that this time's different. Bitcoin comes back to retest its base before actually making a double bottom and then going at a rapid rate back to the upside, which would be last call. But honestly, I'm not saying that personally, but that would be like the most bearish thing that could occur. If anything, we've been proving for many, many months that anytime Bitcoin gets above the 350-day moving average coming out of a bear market, it goes to the green band. And then in 2 out of 4 cases, it went to the red band right after that. Here again in 2015, break through the 350-day, goes to the green band, and then within 6 months up to the red band. 2018 bear market, come up above the 350-day moving average in orange, green band, then red band. And currently we're holding above the orange band as support. You can see that here in coming out of the COVID crash, how we literally double tapped the 350-day and then held the support, and then consolidated in the middle between the orange and the green bands before ripping up into the bull market. So we could be in this particular period here, not unlike DeFi summer, where price of Bitcoin ran up to 12.5 and then crashed back to 10.5 for support, and then go to the green band. Right now, currently, the green band is somewhere around 36,000, and the red band is at 45,000. So then the question remains, well, if that's what we're kind of targeting in terms of like short to midterm, what can that do to Ethereum and HEX? And the obvious is that it's just going to go higher faster, right? It's going to multiply the returns that you're getting in Bitcoin. And then in terms of like what I'm seeing in the HEX chart right now is, big buyers coming in and supporting price along this upper band. So what this is on a longer term time frame is a gigantic Fibonacci channel. And all of the support that you're catching right now on price on HEX is actually what was previously resistance. So you had one rip below, and then the depeg happened, and price got way back up to the 1.618 here, right? So, but besides this one event here, this is held as resistance, 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 resistance twice, breakdown, fat wick, support on the bottom, double bottom, so triple bottom if you include the wick low, breakout, fake out breakout, and then rip all the way to the 1618. And ever since then, we've been oscillating around this 1618 in this channel all the way up. And so this now has become what this zone here was as resistance has now become support, 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 support. And so it's just a figment of my imagination, I guess. That's saying that, anything that you can get below this level is a buy, right? Anything that you can get down here, based on what I'm seeing in the liquidity pools, like there's certain players that wants to catch price lower. Most of us do. Like I think most of us, if we saw a 4-cent HEX right now, we'd be eager to buy. If we saw a 5-cent HEX, we'd probably be eager to buy. I know LP providers want to provide LP below price to capture it. In my own private group right now, I've actually seen the guy LP $15,000. And in a day and a half, he made 750 USDC and accumulated his HEX for the whole bag inside of a pretty wide range. It was about a 1.5, 2 cent range. And so like people are actually scooping this supply off market still. And I saw a comment earlier about players suppressing price. Well, yeah, this is just like people profit taking and just, working the price down. It's not necessarily price suppression so much as it's just big bags that want to exit. They've been waited a long time. Or some of them like waited like 6 months just to take a small 2x profit. And so that's on them if they want to miss out long term, right? But this is just a redistribution. If you look at any of the DEX screener pairs, again, you're still getting that 400 buys, so 230 sells, 325 buyers, 169 sellers, positive volumes on that pair, positive volumes on this pair, and the HEX USDC 1%. ETH pair, 780 buys, 264 sells, positive volumes. And so it's all math, man. The numbers of people coming in are able to absorb a lot of this sell pressure. And yeah, there might be wallets out there that are looking to distract and push price lower, but and then people trying to front run everybody. For example, on the liquidity pairs, we recently saw a guy throw up a huge bar. Let's see, which one was it? I want to say it was WETH. I want to say it was the WETH pair. There was a guy that put up, actually no, it might have been the USDC pair, put up a 6-cent wall. So on here, you would have saw right here at 6 cents, you would have saw this huge bar that would have went off screen. It was 1,000 ETH bar sitting there, where they were hoping that the sellers were able to get the price down to that level. So as the price passed it to the downside, they could just pull the LP and absorb 30 million HEX off market like that, snap of a finger.
Wasn't that ETH Genesis well that made 1,000 ETH buy like not that long ago? I have a vague memory of that. That's who it was.
Potentially, yeah. So there's big players that are, trying to capture the sell-off, and so that's why I caution people that this move might not be over, right? Obviously, when you look at the longer term on things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, I'll find my tab. I mean, the monthly is telling you the story. I mean, this is to fight almost 15-year trend is insanity. Seriously, like, could it play out differently this time? Sure, it could. It really could. But would you fight that? I mean, would you fight that trend, you guys? I know I'm not. I'm scared. I don't want to lose my position. I'm a scared person.
This time will be different. It's different this time.
Possible.
It always is. Yeah.
So it's only going to be different in the exact details, right? As long as we continue to have movement into crypto, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
This is the most bullish thing I've seen on the HEX chart in a few days. It was this buy that came, these guys that came in to absorb supply here. This was, had this not happened, could we have seen taps into these lower fib bands? Sure. But you were getting wicks. You were supported here on the USDC DPEG. This wick was insane. Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
insane.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Some guy got scared. Somebody got trapped out of their ability to sell here. And they're like, okay, well, market dump into what was then no liquidity. So they incurred all that slippage, and then it was within the 15 minutes it was bought back up. We actually caught this. I have a noob. My girlfriend's a noob at crypto, but she caught this dip because she's fast. She's quick with it.
Wow.
And good on her. She caught that. And yeah, so this is now resistance. Well, it could still be resistance, but this is starting to become a triangle, right? An ascending triangle, which is a bullish pattern. And so long as Bitcoin and Ethereum can continue their long-term upside, HEX is going to rip out of here and perform better. That's just how it's going to be. We don't have a date yet on mainnet or anything for PulseChain, but if this thing starts moving without Richard Hart tweets, that's when you really got to start to be scared in terms of upside. The other thing I wanted to show you guys was something from lookintohex.com. HEX is positioned to outperform Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the reason why is because it accomplishes store of value, and it's faster, and you don't have to buy mining equipment, which is sick. But yet there's still this underlying economy that if you're not in positions of holding T-shares, then you're losing every day because you're not getting exposure to the T-share rate. And so because it's accomplishing all these things, first mover advantage, it sparked DeFi summer. It was the most popular thing on Uniswap in the beginning. It created many hundreds of millionaires in the first 2.5 years. This thing is positioned to do amazing things. And right now, as in terms of Bitcoin, it's underperforming the growth curve of Bitcoin from this point in its history. But if you judge it based on this coming off its first bear market bottom, this rip out of here was similar in the visual of it, and the pattern is similar coming out as it was back here. Like if I take away the HEX, you can see this curve that comes out of the base of Bitcoin here is the same as the curve that's coming out of the kind of here. This is actually a little more violent and vertical, but that this is what we could expect potentially out of HEX over the next, any kind of sideways consolidation here would be to be expected. Sure.
Hey, I have a question for you on this, right?
Mhm.
As you're looking at it, what part would you say the halving plays in the dynamics of Bitcoin's value going up?
Okay, that's a great question. So,
I
and then I'm
I have
sure
a
you
part two.
back
I have
to
a part two to interrupt you, right?
Yeah. Yep. So do you want me to start with this and then we'll get into the part two?
Yeah.
So when we look at Bitcoin's 4-year cycle, not only is it tied into the halving, but it's also tied into the presidential election cycle here in the US. And so what that does is it sets up for different economic conditions where Bitcoin has chances to actually run higher based on changes in policy. But the one thing that's static here is the 4-year cycle. And so anytime that this price chart you see goes like blue to dark blue, big actors start to come in to absorb supply off the bottom to try to front run the halving event, right? Because when the halving event occurs, all the mining revenue gets cut in half, and what happens is the price of Bitcoin runs up higher in anticipation of that because of a shortage of supply. And so you can see in all of these cases, Bitcoin makes, basically is bottomed somewhere here in the middle, about 400 days out from the next halving, and that probably leads into part two.
So we both agree that the halving has a big part to do with this, right? And so the guy who designed this stock to flow, or one of the guys that came out first, was Plan B, right?
Correct.
And so Plan B, I caught an interview with him a couple of years ago, and he was asked this fateful question: if you could go back in time and talk to Satoshi, how might what would you tell him about how he might have improved on Bitcoin? And he said, do a halving every day.
Okay.
Or something along those lines, right? Guess what does a halving 3, 4, 5 times a day? Would it surprise you that HEX does that? And all of its derivatives, right? And so while it's not quite a halving is a term for the increase in in difficulty to earn yield. But yeah, every single day, like today, we've already had 3 changes. And so it's not surprising to me that the designers of this system had that in mind with the idea to outperform Bitcoin. And it just tickles me pink that somebody who, at least at the time, was very well respected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plan B. I think he still should be well respected, but that was his answer. Have more happenings. That would have been the single most thing, because his complaint at the time, I think, had to do with how long it would take to process each 4-year cycle. And that by having quicker having quicker halvings, you would move faster. But yeah, we do that sometimes 6, 7 times a day.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So basically here you can see on this chart, Hexicans will be very familiar with this, but for those that aren't, the red line is the actual share rate change over time. And so every time somebody ends a stake, the system has to make sure that they can't restake their principal HEX plus the yield that they've minted in HEX can't be restaked for the same amount of time and get them the same amount of shares, so that the system can't be gamed. So then it increases the share rate so that if they were to, they'd have to stake at least 1 day or more longer to get the same amount of yield. And a lot of times, because this is a compounding effect of hundreds or thousands of stakes ending over months of time, you end up having to stake significantly longer to get the same amount of T-shares. And what we've seen is actually that this T-share rate has increased by 2.7x in its first 3 years, meaning that a guy that got in the beginning, staked for 3 years, would have to stake out 2.7 times longer. So almost 9 years now to get the same amount of T-shares, if my math's correct. Stream maths.
General ideas there.
General ideas.
Yeah, the general ideas there.
Yeah, so yeah, you're getting these 4-year halvings. They're not complete 50% reductions in incoming supply, but instead they're marginal daily increases in the amount of mining equipment you can acquire by market buying HEX and staking it, or by restaking your HEX. So it's kind of like an inverted way of looking at a yield-bearing system compared to like how Bitcoin does it. Because one of the variables in Bitcoin that changes is that you can't account for somebody coming out with an innovation in mining equipment where they come out with a machine that does 10 times the amount of yield per day that yours does. But in HEX, that's static. Like every T-share is always going to print out whatever its daily is going to be, but that daily rate fluctuates based on the number of T-shares in the pool. And so if we look at like what's been going on in terms of the share rate, there's now less shares in the pool, in the red line here on the right, as there's ever been in the entire existence of the system, meaning the daily payouts are at all-time highs in terms of an average. So I think right now we saw like a 6.5 hex per share, or hex per T-share day yesterday. And that should continue to climb so long as stakers don't stake more into this to absorb more T-shares back, right? So, but that would imply that more
higher price.
It's positive either way, because either they lock away more hex and more T-shares gets made, so the payout goes down slightly, but then they can't sell the price, or they pull out their hex, they don't restake it, that hex gets redistributed through the system or gets sat on, and there's less T-shares in the pool, so the yield goes up. So either you're winning more, you're winning on the yield side, or you're winning on the price appreciation side and redistribution side. Or in the case of how the system actually works, is both happening at the same time, so it's a compounding system of parallel up and to the right things. In the case of, if you flip this chart upside down, you'd see that the share rate is always going up and to the right in this case, or the share rate's always going up and to the right because the T-share rate's always going down and to the right. Or the T-shares and this total T-shares is going down and to the right, I mean.
Yep. The amplified yield over time paired with the high potential for price appreciation that really does underline the importance of having some long T-share stakes out there, right? So you're capturing all of that over time, because like as price is going up and the payout per T-share is going up too, at least according to this kind of chart, like the payout in dollar terms just gets exponentially greater over time.
Yeah, let me fudge you out. I'm going to fudge you. Can I fudge you?
Oh God.
Yeah, but Slav, what you're saying doesn't make any sense, because all these people are going to get too much yield. They're going to get too much yield. So what happens when that happens? People buy and they stake, and possibly they drive, they have more T-shares, possibly they drive down the payouts. Okay, so what just happened to price?
Should have went up.
Should have went up, right?
And it's less and less supply, and this gets into the supply part of the equation, right? Liquidity. You can see here that, and to reinforce Crispy Man's point, there's more and more ETH coming into the pools on the top band, and there's more and more USDC coming into the pools on the bottom band, but there's a decreasing amount of HEX in the pools. So it's becoming more and more scarce HEX on the market as an average moving over time. Meanwhile, this is all going back to the beginning of the year, right? So this is since February 2nd, and you've just seen an increase in USDC and ETH coming in and a decrease in HEX going out. And then that HEX is either being staked or being sat on to dump it at 2x or 4x or whatever it's going to be, right?
It just gets redistributed every time it cycles through that 2 to 4x range.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy. Just, we're going to bring up some interesting information from Crispy now about how this all plays out with T-share years, and because it's important to understand. But this system, no matter what time frame you're looking at, the system will go up. Doesn't matter what time. That's why when people come to me with bearish commentary, it's like, what are you looking at, like the 15-minute chart? Are you looking at the daily chart? Because it doesn't. I've been posting bullish charts on HEX all of 2022 because I only see the longer picture. Maybe that's a benefit of being young, but it doesn't take much, right? Someone just said someone sold 2.4 million HEX just sold. So, yeah, let's see how this acts. Let's see if this level is respected, right? Let's see if Bitcoin and ETH continue their moves higher, right? Because ultimately that's what's driving this market, is Bitcoin and Ethereum. All right, so without further ado, let's pull up some data.
Yeah, the more I think about things, the more I know that Richard was right about the real winning player. And so anybody who doesn't want to listen to that is fine. It just move on. That's fine. But staking long term and in a ladder really is the winning move in HEX. Man, every way I look at it, it just turns out to be the case. Yes, guys, I know you could have bought a bunch of HEX and caught the top and sold it and not have to worry about staking. But in terms of generating more HEX, it is the way. And I know we've got some of the old OGs in here that feel the same way. So shout out to Matty Olin, he's here in the chat. So this is what we've been working on, and it's the T-share longevity score. We're fooling around with that name, and just as a recap, we have been, putting ourselves in leagues based on the amount of T-shares that we held. And then Maddie and others had rightfully pointed out, well, that isn't the whole story, because the power of one T-share for one day is not the same as one T-share for Cuatro Cinco. And so how would we adjust that? And what we did is I pulled every address and multiplied every stake, their total remaining days by the number of T-shares, which gives you T-share days. Sum those up, average some numbers, and then also put them in a rank order. And it's pretty revealing information. About so in this ranking, I kept the OA out of it, the suspected OA, so I've got the OA off to the side. And so these are just the stakers themselves, and we see that the top position is Bay 8. Which is one of the addresses we saw rise. And surprisingly, I don't think Bay 8 was a day one Hexagon. I think it came in 2020, but as well as some of the Godwill addresses. And what we find is very interesting is, in the top 10 addresses hold the majority of that power, that minting power of HEX. And so when we start talking about how they take position or how to improve your position, you use this for kind of ranking. So if you go down in the ranks, you can see what it would take for you to move up in a position. So just take one at random and grab our address. I'll drop it into the address bar here. And so you could put your entire ladder and it would tell you your overall ranking by adding all those up. So this particular person is ranked 44, holds about 0.19% of the current, minting that's taking place, and 48% of the minting power is above them. And their average stake length was 9.32 years, and then remaining on the stakes another 6 years on average. So I posit that we'll be able to use this kind of information and dig even deeper to really understand this. But again, what it just shows is, you can time yourself out, the market, and at some point you will end stakes and the new guys take the lead, which is very bullish, right, for meat on the bone.
Yeah, it shows the importance of the value of how many T-shares you have that are not going to be exiting the system, right? It's your weight, it's the gravity that's pulling your position forward in time, and the HEX that you're going to have in the future that can actually impact the system. And so if let's say hypothetically, if people are exiting 5 years from now, if the top 40% of all staking T-share years, if 20 or 30% of that's leaving in 5 years, well, then that's a huge notable event that can be strategized around, and something that you would not want to look over, right? And that's why we do this. That's why we do this data. That's why we're putting together these kinds of charts and stuff.
So when will we know that that's true? We'll know that that's true when it happens, right? But for you to claim your rightful position on the throne, right? When would you have had to take action? Not 5 years from now. You got to do it now. So you know what I mean? So now is the time to really, really catapult yourself up the ranks in the future. But there's probably some risk adjustment you got to do with that, and some thinking and strategizing. But yeah.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Well, Which says, as we're on the topic to finish it out, there is a place where you can get some nice Quattrocinco t-shirts if you want.
50% off.
50% off.
Where's that sale?
I'll tell you later. I'll tell you off screen. Don't worry about it.
And that's a secret.
Yeah, it's a secret.
A
Nobody knows
secret.
about it.
The secret auctions. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Silver the Antidote, if you're listening right now, we're about to go into like another new chart that if you want to join up for, you probably like this one. So feel free to hop in here if you're listening. I'll wait a second to see if you join.
I can't wait.
This new one, you know what I'm looking at?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, well, you made it, so.
But I said I can't wait. You know. Let me see. While we're waiting on that, there's that adoption curve we've been following. Man, it's still going up. You know. So looking at those holders.
Wow.
Yeah, this turned out to be a pretty chart. I like it.
Yeah. This is a chart of. Oh wow, I can draw on this. Oh no, that's an edit layout. Sorry. Side note. So yeah, you can see here the green is the price of HEX in dollar terms, and the red is the amount of people coming into with new wallets, putting HEX on their wallet. And it's super cool that you can see that anytime that price starts to spike up at an increasing rate is when you see the highest level of new wallet adoption. This is the chart that, probably we've talked about a ton. I know that I've mentioned it, last summer, that HEX is a Veblen good, meaning when it's in demand, it's exponentially in demand, right? And when it's not in demand, price falls, right? This is pretty basic. Like usually in the real world, if, like for example, with a real good or commodity, let's say it's food. If food prices gets too high, you're not going to choose to eat that food. You're going to go for a cheaper food, right? Within reason, right? Like if you could go out to eat and it used to cost you $15 for a lunch portion, and all of a sudden now it's $35 for a lunch portion, you probably stop going out as much to eat out, right? That's inflation in effect, right? But in the case of HEX, when the price goes up, more and more people are eager to get it because they want to capture the same returns that everyone else is capturing in terms of the yield of the system and in terms of just the price appreciation. And this chart's proving it with the red line there going up at an increasing rate every time the price spikes. What was Silver's final decision here?
Oh, he said he's eating.
Oh, okay. We can wait a second. I'm gonna pull up anything else you guys want to just pull up on the side, but we didn't really finish this here. This is the HEX Bitcoin ROI from launch. I like looking at HEX and ETH because it shows you how HEX is different from ETH. Like it's overperforming in the upside in the last bull market. It overperformed to the downside in the bear market, and now it's overperforming in terms of ROI throughout the crypto spring period here where we're coming out of the bear market. It also overperformed all last bull market on the way up. And that's a function of the liquidity and it mostly being traded on chain and trackable. But when you index that price, shout out to Gerardo for putting these together. This is maybe more clear is the green line is the Ethereum price flat and then HEX oscillating up and down relative. So you can see that most of HEX's lifespan, it's either traded as a premium to what Ethereum did in terms of ROI or bounced off of it, but only for a very short time has it actually spent below in terms of Ethereum ROI. But most recently we broke down, and then we had the DPEG, and now it's screamed higher. And so HEX is kicking the crap out of Ethereum in terms of price performance since its launch. And this is interesting to me because it makes me think that the market's starting to understand that HEX is different than Ethereum. It's not just an ERC20 and that it has its own value proposition. So the market's starting to show signs that it understands that. And then that's why I'm comfortable comparing it more to Bitcoin. And when you look at the Bitcoin HEX thing and you compare their the performance index, here's Bitcoin ROI from launch in blue. HEX does trade underneath because it's competing with the best performing asset of all time. But if the goal is to compete with the best performing asset of all time, this would be an optimal time to purchase HEX when it's at these huge discounts. It's already done this kind of a discount once before, back on day 350 after big payday. You know, it's been grinding along this bottom line for some time now. I would anticipate that at some point HEX will try to reclaim this level. And if it does, what could that mean for price? Well, it would mean that we could be looking at prices up inside of these ranges, which would translate roughly to $3 to $5 HEX, right? Because it would mean that this pink price line would have to come up over the next 500 to 700 days and eclipse the blue line. So you'd be seeing, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 X return since the launch price, not since the all-time low price. It was easy to do a 10,000X off a 99% drop all-time low price on HEX, but to do a 10,000X from the launch price, you'd be looking at like a $3 to $5 HEX, right? And that wouldn't put you out above this blue line on here. So look at how much runway we have in terms of these two price lines. And then when you look at the index price, look how much runway we have just to get back up to the blue line, how much returns you can make. Even if HEX falls short, it's like a 10X.
I like it.
Looks like Crispy Man's got a chart up. Are you ready for me to pull that up?
Yeah, you can pull that up. Sure. Fill in some time. I ran the bow wave analysis for this month yesterday. So that's what we're looking at here. And so what this is showing us is, let's see if my screen will do what I want it to do. Get out of there. So what we see here is what it looked like month over month, looking forward 12 months in 12-month periods, and how our HEX distribution was coming out through the upcoming stakes. And we finally get to April. You can see that we've had a significant drop in what's expected to come out in the next 30 days. That is primarily driven by the Godwell staking, or unstaking in this case, since he did not restake. We've, we're at somewhat lower number. Most surprisingly, this month is not that, but the trends. So looking at the trends, previously we knew that HEX was collecting in the 30-day window, but the 60-day window had been neutral, and the 90-day had been declining. So now we've moved into a new trend where the 30-day is on the trend up, 60 is trending down, and 90 is trending down. And I think that's a greater reflection of there just being less HEX coming out, over the next 12 months or so, and based purely on the staking behaviors from the past. So pretty interesting to me to track that and see where we're headed.
People aren't going to have as much coming out, right?
Yeah. And I think we saw, I think, if we go to some of the other charts, we would have seen that was already the case, that we hadn't expected there to be a lot of HEX coming out over the next year and a half in comparison to previous years.
And I think a lot of that too, side note here, speculation on my part probably, is that the reason why people might not be staking so fervently right now is because they are anticipating a mainnet launch for HEX. And so it's going to have people less eager to provide LP on the HEX WETH pair, but it's also going to have people less eager to stake short term because they might be looking at what they want to have as actionable HEX to use for different reasons after that fork occurs.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's going to be the case as well. It's going to be pretty explosive, I think. But yeah.
And we also have, I think generally the mindset of everybody in the community is that we've turned the corner and are at the early stages of the bull market. And so most people probably want to take advantage of the higher price targets. And so that means you can't really be staking too long, or the coins that you are staking long, you're forfeiting being able to take profits towards the top at close to dollar ranges. And if we're really fortunate, multiple dollar ranges. And so that would be a damper on new T-shares entering the system because no one wants to stake long, which is where most of them come from anyways, the longer stakes.
Is there something you wanted to show in regards to that as far as your screen share?
No, I had some what's the stuff up.
Okay.
If we needed to fill some more time too.
Okay, cool. We can definitely get into that. You know,
Mhm.
and this is to me is painting a very clear picture that everybody doesn't know what the hell's going to happen after that fourth cruise, and so
Yep.
everybody's trying to be positioned,
Yeah.
right, and to make plays on what, you know, the constant here is that you're getting new wallet adoption, and that more eyes are looking at Hex now than ever before. That's exciting to me because, like, you know, the ultimate position to be in right now is that you have stakes in the system just baking away, and you have had those stakes running for years, and they're going to continue to run. Meanwhile, you can leverage a short-term position, right, to do different kinds of gains short-term through either through liquidity providing, yield farming on the Pulse and PulseX, or you know, trading, ratio trading, you know, whatever revenue you want to do. Even short-term staking could become a strategy in the bull run in 2025 and 2026, where the amount of people flooding into the system for the first time is going to be so many, and still for somebody who has no recency bias or unit bias that are buying Hex at $1, they're like, oh, it's just $1, right? You know, I make 60,000 a year, or 100,000 a year, or 200,000 a year. I can buy a few $1,000s worth and get thousands of these things still, right? Even at $1 price target. And so those are going to be the guys that are going to be paying for all of us that are going to be staking short 90 to 180 days, you know, and then just selling the interest off. And yeah.
Even more importantly, on that note, it's like, you know, you can still get 1,000,000 hex with $1 million, right? Like that's still like an attainable number of hex to get. Obviously not for most people, but like for larger players, they can still get 1,000,000 hex, which is like a lot of hex.
Which is why I think the ascent toward those all-time high plus targets is going to be so violent and so fast and so aggressive, is because, you know, there's already big financial people positioned very well financially that are large, that are looking at the chart waiting for the best deal, because we still have a shaky market in crypto spring. As the stuff gets settled and you actually go full-fledged bull, there's still a chance that things are going to calm down for a final swing low, and that's where they're going to be. They're eager to put in, you know, a lot of USD value fresh off the street, you know, because again, we're seeing the dollar crash hard. And you know, it's going to be a messy year and a half, because here in the States we have a presidential election where they're going to try to fudge the numbers to make the economy look strong this year, and make the dollar not look so bad, and make, you know, import exports look good in favor of the U.S. Make this system look like it's, you know, like they're backstopping a lot of the problems, and that it's going to be okay. And you could get run-ups on the stock market to do a double top, like Dixon Piper likes to say, or you could see crypto go into like a midsummer lull, but that overall that you get a nice rip out of here, and that overall this is just like the coming of age moment for crypto to go fully mainstream, and that you can't look away anymore.
100%, man.
So I guess I'm gonna pull up the this new chart that we got. We'll probably run this for another 20 minutes, coming up on the 2-hour mark. So it's
Sounds good.
pretty good. So I asked Crispy Man if he would want to work on Mayer multiple for Hex, and it's not complete yet, but it's at a point now where we can still share it. Not that we want to give away all the dirty sauce on what we're seeing in the chart, but just that. So this is the Bitcoin Mayer multiple, and how this works is, it's basically an index like we were showing you before, but instead of indexing Hex against Bitcoin or Hex against Ethereum, you're indexing Hex against its 200-day moving average. And it gives a clear picture. You can see that on this particular Bitcoin Mayer multiple, anytime that it trades below the 0 line, it's a bargain, and anytime that it trades above, it's in a bull market. And so what we can gather from that is like, maybe, well, what are we going to see in the chart? Crispy, do you want to pull that up, or I guess I didn't really get it prepped.
Yeah, I got it. I'll pull it right up. Hold on a second.
And so basically what we're looking for here is times of overvaluation and undervaluation. And there's a lot of analysis that's done on Bitcoin to kind of see where the ultimate deals are and where the ultimate selling climaxes are. And so that effectively, when you make this for HEX, it's giving you signal years in advance, right, of these huge mega bottoms. So big shout out to Crispy for putting this together. It's obviously it's not fully done yet, but here you can see HEX indexed against its 200-day moving average. And we just came out of the bear market, and look how long HEX traded at a discount relative to its 200-day. It was an extended period of time. Looks like we got a new guest here. Silver the Antidote.
Hey
What's
guys,
good?
what's going on? Good man.
Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good show. Good show. Enjoying it so far. Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
What's up there, Silver?
What's going on, man?
So you know, people are gonna look at this and they're gonna be able to immediately get like golden nuggets. Just, I mean, it's simple enough that you can read it and you can know when things are overvalued and when things are undervalued relative to that. And if you start looking at it, I mean, I want to know, I'm eager to know what you guys see in this chart and what you think performance could look like going forth, and where you could potentially see pullbacks or impulses.
There's one thing that jumps out to me in the chart, and that's like around when it broke down from the all-time high, did like a fake out, went down, and then tested it as resistance, and that led to like a major breakdown. And then also previously, early bull market around, looks like big payday-ish, it held it as support. And so looking that we just crossed it now, like it would be cool to see it tested as support for more long-term upwards price appreciation, or at least sustainable upwards price appreciation.
Yeah, and I suspect that we're probably going to have to break this chart up into some time phases, and maybe do away, you know, when looking at it for the future, right? Do away with what happened in the past, because I think they're different phases. You know, as certainly at least the initial distribution phase for that first year of 2020, because I think it'll give you a whole different picture if that isn't there. And we might also need to be looking at what the mean is. You know, what is the mean? Is it one? Is it, you know, how does HEX perform to give us that kind of indicator of when it'll give you an idea of taking some sort of action?
Sure. You know, just off the top of the head, you know, it definitely makes sense to kind of follow what Willy Woo did there, where he made it a logarithmic chart, and then you find that zero line, which would be the mean, right?
Right.
And then that would actually give us even more clarity, because right now you don't have that much resolution on the downside action, and so to get that would be where you'd really be able to snipe those bottom calls.
But I think, you know, the huge difference probably would be when we look into 21, right? And we're looking at this time frame over here, July being the you know, July over here being right around the pulse sacrifice, right?
Yeah, it's a clean, it's very clean technical triple top there.
Yeah, so very big. Yep. And then the idea that right, because the Mayer multiple, maybe people don't know what it is, but I mean the Mayer multiple is meant to be a indicator that tells you when a purchase of Bitcoin, in the case of Bitcoin, would most likely result in a profit, right? And so the way it was articulated is something like 1.48 or something score. As long as you historically had always purchased at 1.48 or lower, you would always be in a profit above 1.48, something of that nature.
Yeah, and that's changed over the years now. That, you know, I do remember that. Remember in the 2018 and 19 bear, like that was the number, was 1.46 was the low. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And what's really telling us, right, and then this is what you said before, is if you have that kind of number set, whatever the number is, right, for your median, when you go below it, it looks like it's a buy, and when you go above it, it looks like it's less of a buy. And so it looks like to us, we spent a lot of time below that one number, and all of a sudden, hey, didn't we pop out of that?
Yeah, it doesn't even look like we fully even got there to test. It seems like we always rolled over short of it during the bear market.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
when you say that, you're referring to these test points here, right?
Yeah, right where your cursor is there in the middle on that low.
Yeah, I mean, you would consider this be on the downward side, and it tried to maybe break back above, but then
You got one test here, and then after that you didn't even make it up.
yeah,
There.
you didn't get there.
And there. And there.
Yeah, yeah, until we just blew right through it.
Right.
Yep.
So there was definitely some pressure building in the pressure cooker, especially when you look at the TVL. That's something that I like to look at a lot here. It's the TVL, how we spent so long trapped inside of this. And I'll pull it up and draw on it so you guys can see for sure what I'm seeing. 1 second. Computer's freezing. Let's see. Silver, what do you think about this stuff?
Yeah, well, you know my stance. I was just letting you guys talk first, right? Charts, obviously, chain takes advantage on chart. So I'm always looking to see how people's activities are behaving. Chart doesn't really matter to me. It's what people are inclined to be doing and responding at certain stages. So that is what I take a lot of the value from, because that is going to paint the chart into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, I've identified a good dozen accounts that I deem as quite dangerous to the system and the value, because I've seen how they've started to react when we hit the 11, 12, 13 cent range.
Right up in here.
So that is enough information for me to start to make my own conclusion about what the probability may be before even chart paints any particular picture. Because if you calculate when potentially some of these accounts bought in, price does not really matter in some ranges, because the profits are significant.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been through quite a drawn out bear market that any relief they're fairly happy with.
Yeah, that's very
So
telling.
it's not that I want to be bearish, but it's just if certain players, certain actors are selling or making certain zones difficult to penetrate, and the likelihood of when those ranges reoccur, the pressure is likely also to reoccur.
Mm-hmm.
And don't ignore the fact that when you attract a lot of trader mentalities, trade tards, like I like to say inside of the Twitter space, they also acquire during certain ranges. And they are also very happy to sell at losses. Very happy. And this creates more pressure at certain points.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I need, more time and passage. But currently, I'm not feeling too good about us ranging higher than 12.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, the data is in the chain, and those that can go in and view it will know that. But very few will actually come out because it's a negative spin. But I figure, just be transparent to the best ability, and be realistic about what expectations may be. And the only thing that will overpower is buying momentum. So the question is, yes, we do have some accounts that are coming in with a lot of firepower. The question is, will they overpower the current situation? So yeah, good to see that the Ether address, the Genesis account, was actually doing an additional buy today. They did actually put LP down, and I did tweet about this. They put LP down at about a 6 cent range based upon the Ether ratio at the time. So that's powerful. That's good. They were supporting. They removed that basically the next day. So that was momentary. That's just like a little blip in the chart of LP values. That's removed. They've now readjusted. They've recalibrated. They've updated worldview. Okay, they believe that price is going to go higher, which is why they then decided to do another purchase today.
Yeah, I
So
was
that's
going to ask.
good.
I was going to ask you about that. So that must be the conclusion, right? That they didn't want to wait.
They didn't want to wait, correct? So that's beneficial to price. But the question is, what is their allocation out of their portfolio that they're willing to put in? Maybe they only had an allocation, say 2,000 ether potentially. But then you could be looking at a sell pressure of say 4,000 or 5,000 ether. So that's going to counterbalance whatever they do, and then this is why to try to gauge what the wallets, what their motive may be, and because they have held that level of ether for so long, are they going to put a lot of it at risk at particular price ranges now with the market structure in the macro of how it is? I would say, okay, maybe 20% might be their limit of liquid ether potentially, because to go more, you're then putting your bag at a lot of risk, which could end up being the exit liquidity of those other dozen that I'm saying are clearing profit at these ranges. So I don't mean to put a downer on what's been a fantastic stream.
I
but it's like a point.
I believe that's bullish. I'm actually that to me
Fine.
that's that what would be perceived as like negative sentiment is actually positive. So I see that as a positive, that we can identify 12 accounts that we can actually use them, milk them for their supply. And if you just let them bring the price down to us, that's a positive, right? And so, I encourage this ETH whale and others like him to let the market do its thing and absorb those people's coins at places where it's more beneficial for the ecosystem long term. That's my call to action, so to speak.
Yeah, equally in line with what you're saying, we know the power of what 10,000 ETH market buy does. We've seen it, and it's never retraced. So that is potentially the power of what this potential player could do right now. He could send the other 8,000 ETH into market, remove everything out there, let everybody that's got the bags that they wanted to exit with. Yeah, of course, it could go to 20 cent and probably trace and hold in that range, should that action happen. And that's why you need time to transition. And they're being cautious because they did the buy. What was it, about 40 days ago? Their first initial buy of 1,000 ETH down at 5.6 cent, right?
I believe so. Let's see. Right here, I think, is where it was, I believe. So to give you guys some context, this was their first order, this was the DPEG event, and this was their second order today.
Yeah. So it looks like they're moving in and growing with it, as well as it outperforming the Ether chart. The ETH is being outperformed by the Bitcoin. And
remember,
the question is,
he's hedged because he's staked.
Oh, he staked it, but that's going to be, I think it was only a 30-day stake that he ran
May
it,
6th.
which means it's going to be coming out soon. And obviously he's up, so that's a good indicator to him. Okay, I made the right move, I made the right choice. Shit, I wish I did 2,000 ETH, not just the 1,000. But now he's starting to implement some more, so it's reaffirming his belief, his gut instinct that yes, this is a good thing to get into. And obviously when you see a month worth of action, a month inside of crypto is like 2 years inside of the real world.
Right.
So he's going to be feeling probably quite confident, and that equally now with enough passage of time. And if you actually look at that now on some of your bands that you got down there, some of those diagonals, he's actually taking it on a support line based, and whether he does TA or whether he takes this into account, that may be good. But I will still have a sense of caution with that if the main market,
and the main market too, which
100%.
we're both
main market.
This is what I was telling people in the beginning of the stream, was how I love speaking with you, because I like the longer term view of the market, and you like to to play the market on a shorter term, and so like we get to compete with ideas of where we think the market is going to go. So you're
Yeah.
constantly teaching me your gut feelings and things on what's happening in the market on the hour by hour level.
Yeah, I heard that part about where it's good to have people that are opposing views, and it's not like just to make an argument or
Oh
just who's
no,
right, who's wrong.
I don't ever
It's
think bad about
it's
that.
good. Yeah, it's good to have that opposing, because especially like, you know, if you are wrong, it will make you reevaluate, why was I wrong? Okay. And I just put a video out quickly before you guys went, because I was, you know, middle of cooking and everything. But I did talk a little bit about how it is the small time frames, which on the longer macro you don't account for because you just take it as volatility. But it is the short terms that actually paint the picture of the longer terms too. So if you can start to identify what may be pivotal or significant movements, the same way that HEX made a pivotal move down at the 3 cent and broke out of very powerful resistance levels. If you can identify that early on, you can basically get into a very good position, and you can decide to whether to buy, you can decide whether you need to sell. Okay. And that will give you a lot more ammunition on either side. Should the market go up 10x, great, you're going to do really well. If you exit a position and the market goes down, say 50%, now you're going to be in a very good position to acquire a lot more and run it on a bounce. So these are very, I mean, this is like, you know, technically like trading, but for a lot of people out there, the majority of the daily activity that you see, they are trading. There's no question about it. Check it on chain. They are
And would you
trading.
agree that those traders are rocket fuel for price, right? Because they're never going to be first in, but they'll buy confirmation or they'll buy a breakout. Things like this that actually propels the market forward. Also, to the reverse side, they're the ones that are first to dump or willing to sell for a loss that propels it to the downside. So they're like the guys that's getting in there and getting jumbled up in the tumbler, while the real market makers are the ones that's really driving price on key levels. So when you do get support here, perfect bounces on the 618 twice, the market, that's the market respecting. That wasn't an ETH whale respecting that level. That was the market respecting that level twice. Here and here.
Yeah, I mean, some of it obviously comes down to liquidity. Some of it comes down to those limit order protectors of price. You know, there are several of those out there that do put in, you know, what would be classed as cheeky offers down in cheap ranges. The actual trade tards, yes, they are literally just mincemeat for the grinder. That's what happens to them. I do highlight them often, and the majority, as we all know, lose. There are some, and I've caught, you know, again, a dozen decent traders that have made decent money along the way. But the majority will lose. But this is not a game of, you know, really short time frames, because 98% will lose. But there are some that can actually outpace the system. It does happen. Maybe that answers it.
So this is my like super degen side that most of you Hexicans will never know, but I'm about to tell you. I used to watch the 1 minute chart and trade 100x. So this is where I was battle scarred and had to become an expert at reading this stuff on really small time frames. And so when you look at this pattern here, this looks quite bearish, but like this is Bitcoin on the 1 minute. But what you're seeing here is that these wicks, they're implying that level has been protected, and that was the key level of the 28,000 level. So on the 1 minute chart, you're actually saying that Bitcoin's set for upside, right? Not that it can't be broken, but and then there's other metrics we can watch. But you know, a lot of times when I do this, I'll pull up the Heikin-Ashi, because the Heikin-Ashi is really going to tell you the average of price moving over time in the candles. And so these candles look nothing like these candles, right? And they're telling a kind of a different story. There's a lot of green coming in here, but on this chart, it looks like, you know, kind of 50-50, but on this, it's just all green all the way up on this 1 minute. And so lots of Bart Simpson patterns in here, lots of volatility. You know, the market's repositioning. I still believe, base case, that the market's heading higher. The question is, for those of you expert players in the space, can you capitalize on these small drawdowns? And like kind of what does that look like? And that's kind of what Silver's saying too. The other night when Bitcoin broke out to 29,000, it was immediately up and immediately rejected down. This is called it clears out the order book to the upside, clears it back out to the downside. You get some consolidation, and then these new low targets, and then it tried to break out again, made a lower high. So this is all telling me that we're just consolidating under resistance on a longer time frame. So it looks something like this, but that generally this is bullish price action, especially when you combine it on the monthly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Let me add, because you just reminded something I forgot. If you go back to the HEX chart, when you actually see most of those wicks go down, they are normally like OG type accounts, or very old coin that are creating those flush downs. So they're not too worried by huge wicks in comparison to it being a trade card that is just dumping like everything they got. So these are normally quite large accounts that are just, let me get the cash.
Okay. Yeah, and again, this is on the ETH pair. So this is telling me that old HEX wallets then are liking ETH more than they're liking USDC. They're trying to gain a bigger ETH position. It's funny because the Hexicans are trying to get back a bigger ETH position, and the Ethereans that didn't get in are trying to get a bigger HEX position. So this is battle.
Perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
Perfect timing about to happen.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, guys. So,
Yep.
I don't know, Slothman, do you want to just touch on Watts quick before we close out the stream?
Yeah, man, it'll be super quick, super quick. So, some really cool numbers for what's this. Actually, let me pull up Dev. Dev Huey made a tweet that made me look into this more. But we have just crossed the first 1 trillion points that have been burned in what's, and so that equals to $1 million worth of money that was sent to mint these things has been burned and it's gone from the pool forever. And so you see, steep line down for the number of points total in the system. Obviously, that correlates to more points being burned. What's are a $1,000 What's NFT has was it $2,200 of underlying Icosa value that you could mint if you burned your What's. So that's pretty cool. There's the 2.2x basically on your initial investment for the underlying value, and then we're seeing premium still going for them on OpenSea. So like this one was a $10 one. It went for $120. See if we can find a bigger one. $100 one went for $300. So actually, this is interesting because these premiums on OpenSea are about the same as what they've been, even though the underlying value of them is starting to catch up to that secondary market premium that we're seeing. So I think with a nice move up on HEX and a nice move up on Icosa, we might actually start to see more points being burned as burning these Whatsas and minting the Icosa becomes even more profitable. That's all. It's a cool.
Yeah, I think one of the things to add to that as well, Sloth, is definitely maintain the aspect about the HSIs, because there's people literally picking up T-shares, HEX stakes long term for 3-cent ranges, even when HEX is like 7 cent plus. So there's a lot of those still going down. Yeah, you have to obviously acquire the HEDRON, but this is a very under the radar valuation of how you can actually acquire a lot of HEX, albeit that some of them may be very long term. But nonetheless, if you're sub 40-year-old, these things are going to be very good things to have later on. And if you're getting them for way under market value currently, that would dictate that this is probably a good place to get involved.
Yeah, if you're in the market for long-term T-shares, your best bet right now is to buy HEDRON off the market and then try to win some auctions. 100%.
Alrighty, so we do have some announcements for you guys. First off, we're putting together a market making course. It's going to be launching on the 15th and the 16th of April. We have a deposit address you can pay in USDC through that address, or if you want to sign up through my website on axisALiVE.com, you can get access to all my content plus one free course, so you could use that discount code for that particular course. And then with that, Silver the Antidote has been instrumental in helping Sloth and myself understand LP from like a really expert level, really high level. And he's going to be weighing in with his input on the course material and things. And he may or may not show up in person that day. But generally, I would just want to remind everybody that, you know, his expertise will be present in the content. And then, you know, Sloth, anything else you want to add to that?
Yep. The 15th and the 16th of this month, we'll be doing it. The live coursework, you know, it's going to be from 0 to 100. So if you've never provided liquidity or don't know much about market making, we're going to be building things up from the ground up for you to understand the more advanced stuff that are going to be coming on the second day. You know, me and Axis in the background have been working on this content for a while, and we're at a pretty good point where we feel comfortable releasing dates. And so, you know, keep an eye out for more details to come, but it's, you know, $100 to get access. And then obviously if you have access to Axis's subscription, like he said, you get a course for free. So that's another way to get access to it. Let's see, Axis, do you have the address?
Yeah, we'll both make tweets in a little bit here today, and then we'll just have like the entire info sheet. We'll need obviously your transaction ID, your Telegram account name, and or your Twitter account name. So we have multiple ways of contacting you. And then it'll be a 2-day course. Day 1 will be approximately 2 hours with 45 minutes of questions afterwards, and then day 2 kind of a similar format. So it'll be on the weekend, right? 15th, 16th, I believe. Yep. And we're excited to show you more, man. Like, you know, and actually, but being able to apply this myself and do it and learn from the master, Silver the Antidote, has been a pleasure. So big shout outs to him, man, because he's really the one that inspired us to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah.
Also, Crispy Man is going to be continuing to work with all three of us to build out what is going to end up being a complete compendium suite of the best data analytics and charts that you could ever expect. And there'll be different packages. There's always going to be obviously the free stuff that you guys are used to, but he's been getting more and more people coming to us, you know, wondering like, oh, you know, I want to see the more granular stuff that you took off Hexfire Classic. And so like that stuff is coming again in a new form on the new re-envisioned hexfire.io. So we're excited to also unveil that as well in the coming you know, months, I would say. Maybe a month or two.
Should be a month or two.
So
looking good.
Things are progressing. We're always we're always discovering, learning from each other, finding new ways to evaluate these ever evolving markets, and just getting better and better every day. And we want you guys to be along with us for the ride. And so with that, anything else you guys want to provide before we?
Yeah, one thing I want to say to the community, you know, one of the best things you can do out there, guys, is actually support everybody. Okay, give them positivity, give them reinforcement. You know, it might be a small thing, but it actually means a lot to the people out there who are out there trying to help. So please go out of your way, leave them a comment, just a little bit of encouragement goes a long way. Cheers.
True.
Thanks, Silver.
Thanks,
everybody.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
All right. Pure Alpha 6 out. Peace.
Yeah.